Hello and welcome to more Spooktober. Today, I thought we would look at the amazing abundance of lake monsters worldwide and sightings that go back years, decades, centuries. We've had sightings of such beings for a long time now. Perhaps the most famous is Scotland's Loch Ness Monster. Now, this photo is now known to have been a hoax, even though it's one of the most famous photos because it got spread all over the place. But yeah, they used a toy replica and then took a picture so that nothing but the water could be seen, so you can't scale it up or down. But it's under the subgrouping Lake Monster, and they list a number of others. Champ, the monster from Lake Champlain in the US, Ogopogo, the monster from Lake Okanagan in Canada, the Altamaha, which is a lake monster from Georgia, which it apparently inhabits multiple streams or, little lakes, which there are a number of monsters like that we'll come across. Tahoe Tessie, which is in the depths of Lake Tahoe in the U.S. All these are U.S. except for Ogopogo. But yeah, the Loch Ness Monster, we have another article about it from Britannica, but yeah, it's probably the most famous in the world. And it's from Scotland because it goes back 7th century, so it's 600s from St. Columba. But we have other monsters. Ogopogo, as we mentioned. It's seen in Lake Okanagan in British Columbia, so the far western province of the nation. But yeah. Another article on Ogopogo. Champ, as I mentioned before, Lake Champlain in the U.S. Which that's, yeah, a freshwater body that's shared by the states of New York and Vermont, with a portion extending into Quebec, Canada. So it's kind of on that border there. There's a image of where it sits, like here, and it sits on the northeast border of New York and the northwest border of Vermont, with a little bit into Canada, into the Quebec province. But yeah, the Lake Champlain monster, which is named after a French explorer. What was that dude's name? Samuel de Champlain. But yeah, the Flathead Lake Monster in Montana, in the Flathead Lake. And yeah, it originates from the Kootenai traditional legend, which are an indigenous people of Canada and the U.S., which Montana borders Canada. It's a U.S. state on the very north. between Idaho and the Dakotas. So yeah. Um, but yeah, um, northwestern. So this end of the state is where Flathead Lake is. And more information, Bessie. This is one I hadn't heard of. From Lake Erie, one of the Great Lakes, um, that border the U.S. and Canada. Though the first recorded sighting only goes back to 1870. Like I said, some of these don't go back that far. Um, but others, they go back a long ways. Okanagan, uh, bu- 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 yeah, it goes back to the Native Americans. Which the Sequim- Sequapimp and Silix peoples, I know I butchered that name, I'm sorry, called it the Naitaka and said it was an evil supernatural entity with great power and intent. And it goes back to 1872 that uh, non-natives saw it. How far back have the natives apparently been seeing it, though, is what I kind of wonder. That's what I'm always astounded by. Some of these sightings go back a long ways. That's Ogopogo Champ. Like I said, he gets his name from Samuel de Champlain, the explorer, in 1609. So this one goes back quite a ways as well. Cultural importance. Like I said, I'm sure the native peoples have seen it as well. It can't be just Champlain being the first seeing it ever, but the first European. Yeah, more than 300 reported sightings of the monster. Um, yeah, original story related to the Iroquois legends of giant snakes, which the Mohawk people named the Onyadakoa. And again, I'm probably butchering that. I have no clue on how to speak these different native names. So again, my apologies. The Flathead Lake Monster. Kootenai people. But sightings Local tales go back more than 100 years, so I'd say at least into the tip end of the 1800s. Bessie, first recorded sighting in 1817, but of course they have a sighting even further back, and then, yeah, because they saw a large creature in 1793, supposedly, but it was north of Sandusky, Ohio. But yeah, about 1800, 1817 is the first remembered. Did the natives report any descriptions? That's what I'm kind of interested in. This one, I don't see any mentions of the natives having seen it. But again, then I decided, let's look outside the US. Looked into Europe. Because I knew Nessie, but apparently in Italy, in Lake Como, there's a monster known as Loriosoro. For Lorio, which apparently was an original name for the lake. But the sightings we have back to the 50s. It's not been seen that long ago. So it's not as common, but yeah, we do see mentions of it. What else we got here? The Afonk. This is a Welsh. Avonk is how the Welsh pronunciation says it's like, but yeah. Yeah. Avionk, sometimes also called the Adonk. Or Aonk, I'm not sure. Again, I don't speak Welsh. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. Lake monster from Welsh mythology. Looking like a crocodile, beaver, or dwarf-like creature. Or a platypus. Sometimes said to be a demon. So yeah, was said to prey upon any foolish enough to fall or swim in its lake, which is a lot like other lake monsters. I think it's another Scottish monster, the Kelpie. The one, it's like a horse, but it drags them into the water. Or drags them underwater if they're in their lake. I think that's right. Kelpie. Let me look it up here. Kelpie. Yeah. It is there's a Kelpie dog from Australia, but we're looking for the Kelpie lake monster. Um, so yeah, it's kind of like that because I know supposedly it had a tendency to drag victims into the abyss. Every sizable body of water in Scotland has an associated Kelpie story, but the most extensively reported is that of Loch Ness. So again, another tie to Loch Ness. Not just Nessie, the Loch Ness monster, but potential Kelpies. Trying to see if they have how far back. Talking about it can shapeshift. 1810, it was mentioned in a poem, The Lady of the Lake. So it's been around long enough to be mentioned there. Pictish stones, which the Picts, were the early Scottish peoples, tribes in Scotland. Um, they dated from the 6th to the 9th centuries. Those stones, which had been dubbed the Pictus Beast, may be the earliest representations of a Kelpie or Kelpie-like creature. So it may go back quite a ways. In historical context. So, again, yeah. The Brosno Dragon from Russia, set to Lake Brosno. In western Russia, and it's described as resembling a dragon, and stories and legends that date back to the 13th century. So yeah. I mean, like I said, it seems like every location has some kind of freshwater lake monster. So it's not just this idea of ocean monsters, sea monsters. Why is there always this idea of some kind of lake monster? We have the Lagerflot worm from Iceland. Near the town of Igilsdwar. Again, I know I'm butchering that. I apologize. First sighting is often suggested that is 1345. So again, goes back quite a ways. This one is a European monster that dwelt in fresh water in a holy well or river. Luxembourg, France, and the Low Countries, which is your upper France towards Germany, like your Belgiums and such. But yeah. Literary version in 1393, so who knows how much more beyond that point it had been lore, because it was being written down in books in 1393. This one's not set to a specific lake, kind of like that Affonk from Welsh legend. But yeah. The Lake Tianchi Monster from China/North Korea. Which is Heaven Lake. That's located in the peak of Baek Du Mountain. Though the first sighting is fairly new, 1903. The Lake Tianchi Monster. It's a more recent one. Like I said, I got the thing for Kelpie. But then we've got a list here. Area, bodies of waters, nation, continent, and the name of the monster. So, yeah. A Spanish monster, American monster, Argentina, US, which the US, is, like I said, is huge. So many lakes and other locations that you can see so many monsters. Same with Russia. I'm sure we'll see a good amount of Russia. Australia, Canada, US, Canada, US, Colombia, US, Canada, US, Sweden, US, Australia, US, Canada, US, Democratic Republic of Congo, the Irizima, Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, in Lake Edward. So there's an African lake monster. US, Japan, in Lake Ikeda Isi. Canada, US, Japan, Iceland, US, China, North Korea, Turkey, Lake Van, in the US, Italy, in Lake Victoria, which is in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, Canada, Australia, US, Canada, US, Canada, Republic of the Congo, US, the UK, Ireland, the UK, Canada, Australia, Canada, Argentina, UK, USA, Zambia, Zimbabwe, US, Canada, Canada, US, Thailand. So yeah. US, Canada, Norway, Malaysia, US, Sweden, New Zealand, UK, Canada, Belarus, US, Costa Rica, US, Poland. And that's just what's listed here. It's not to mention other monsters like the Kappa of Japanese mythology, which live in lakes and often have the little indented fluid lake water holders in its head. So yeah. But what I wanted to kind of come to in this video, I wanted to show that for some reason there's this unbelievable abundance and exhaustion of lake monsters. Not necessarily we know about ocean going sea monsters and all this. They were often putting on maps and stuff, but look at the abundance of lake monsters. Monsters that were supposed to occupy lakes, some going even further, occupying certain rivers and stuff. And we have histories for some of them that go back decades, and like I said, centuries. Some of them are new, but some of them been around for a long time. Now, is this to say that all of them are lake monsters? There's something in the lake, more than likely. Yes, some of the sightings could have been people's imagination running away when things are happening that set up this idea that this is what it is. But I also have no doubt there is often something in the lake. Whether it's a confusion of debris or other organisms. There's a good possibility that's going to be a lot of the sightings as well. But there is always these handful of sightings that do not correspond to anything like that. And that's what makes you wonder, what is it that connects this idea that there is something in our freshwater bodies across the world? What is going on? But I've already let this video hit half an hour. Sorry it took so long, but I was going through everything, looking at everything. Because a lot of the stuff I do it off cuff. I don't get to do as much research as I like to and everything. So, anyway, we'll go ahead and end this episode here. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting my links and sources in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.